Test, 1, 2, 3. Better? So we couldn't be here last night, but Hanmi and Wanchen and the Bowman family participated, and also Teddy Dos Años was here as well. So for the special grace family, that's great. So today, I don't know if this is finished, but I was working on this sermon because I was planning on getting it next week. And I tentatively titled it, Where Do the Children Play?, which is from a song by Cat Stevens, who talks about a future when, there's big buildings and everything is paved over and there's no place for the children to play. So it's peripherally connected to what I'm talking about today, I guess. But when we look forward 10 years to 2033, many of us will no longer be here. And I wonder what will Triangle Family Church look like in 10 years, in 2033. 10 years ago, 2013, our attendance was higher than it is today. We had on average probably around 40 people at Sunday service. And now it's closer to 25, and sometimes it's less than that. So our trend is declining. And so the future of our church, the future of this church, depends on our children. Do they follow in our footsteps and inherit our faith? Last week I spent some time with my daughter-in-law, Marina. We went to the nursery to pick up a plant. And we were talking about the church and young people. Are they still interested in this movement, in this church? Why don't they come to church unless they're forced to by their parents? And I suggested, maybe the church should stop telling people what they should do. And she agreed. She said, that's right. And there's multiple reasons why young people don't come to church. But this is one reason. They don't want to, because they know when they come here, they might get roped into something they don't really want to do. And when we talk about absolute obedience, if it's not accompanied by true love, then it looks a lot like a dictatorship. When I joined the church in 1976, my parents were going through a divorce. And about a year later, my mother remarried. She married a Jewish man. And so in the Jewish religion, there are two kinds of Jews. There's Orthodox and there's Reformed. Orthodox Jews are very strict, and they keep the traditions, and they're really strict about keeping the traditions and the teachings of the church. Whereas Reformed Jews, like my stepfather, are more pragmatic, and they, he would eat pork, for example. He would work on the Sabbath. He didn't dress in the traditional clothing. I think both are important, the Orthodox Jews, because they keep the old ways intact. They maintain them through the years. And also the Reformed Jews are important too, because they accommodate the modern perspectives, and they they allow the faith to evolve to keep up with modern times and the changes in society. So both are important. And I think in our church as well, this is going to be a short message, but it's going very quickly. In our church also, many of us are very concerned about keeping tradition, maintaining the same faith. And then some believe that the church needs to evolve and change with the times. And many of those people are sitting on the sidelines right now. They don't come to church. And I think among our young people, many of them are like that. So we have a couple of choices. We can either leave them behind, or we can become a church which allows different viewpoints and to look for the common ground, allow people freedom of conscience. When I studied about the founding fathers, I came across the term freedom of conscience. And this is something which I believe is credited to James Madison. James Madison was a young man, and he was 24, I believe, and he tried to join General George Washington's army to fight the British. But historians believe that James Madison had epilepsy, and so at that time he had an epileptic episode, an attack, and it wouldn't let him join, it wouldn't let him in. Writhing on the ground or whatever. It wouldn't let him in the military, so he went back home where he continued to pursue politics, and he became very important to the Virginia legislature and the Continental Congress. And all through his childhood, Madison had been told that evil spirits was what caused epilepsy. And he heard that mainly through church writings and teachings and church leaders. But he was well read, he read a lot, and he came to believe that there were other causes. And so he found that he could control his disease through exercise and diet and managing stress. So he actually was a very vibrant person. He lived a really vibrant life. He traveled a great deal, and he didn't go to Europe or France. He was recommended as an ambassador or a liaison to France, but he didn't go because he didn't want to be in the middle of the ocean and fall overboard because he had an attack. But he lived a full life despite his disease, but his experience with religion made him feel that it has to be the Virginia legislature wanted to pass a law that everybody should tithe, everybody should donate. And they said, to the church of your choice. So in that way, they were trying to make it not, you can donate to whatever church you want to. But he said, that's a problem because it violates freedom of conscience. The freedom of conscience being that God gave us this ability to freely think for ourselves how we're going to live our life. God gave that to us, so it was God-given, and he felt he had to defend it no matter what. And so he made an argument, which people heard it, and he had good friends. He had friends in high places. He was good friends with Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton, and eventually that concept also went into the Constitution, that Congress should make no law abridging the right of freedom of religion, and that church and state should be separate. So he was this is why. So divine principle explains our conscience is connected to God, and that's why it must be unencumbered. And so that's why when I hear people say in our church, we must do this, we should do that, I can't relate to that at all. When I was growing up, my father was strict. He was very strict. And as many of you, I'm sure your fathers were also strict, because that was our generation. Now it's different. It's not like that anymore. But I resolved when I became a parent that I didn't want to be like that. I didn't want to control my children. I was afraid of my father. I was very obedient, but that was out of fear. And so I didn't want to be that kind of parent, for better or worse. There's advantages and disadvantages. But we didn't really insist. Of course our children came to church when they were young, but when they got to a certain age, 15, 16 years old, it became their choice. They can come or not. And I really hope there's a time when, so my children are not here today, but sometimes they come. they're not alienated from the church. They don't hate the church. But the church has to provide something which appeals to them so they will come here. You know, as I've mentioned many times before, they get together once a month. All the blessed children go to Jean's house. They meet and someone gives a talk. They call it Tiny Talk. It's kind of like a TED Talk like concept. And, you know, they have, I think they had 12 people last time they did it, which was last Sunday, I believe. But sometimes they get, 10 or 20 people come, young families, our young church families come, they get together with other blessed children, and they just spend time together. And they talk about God. They talk about God. So hopefully, when it's okay to come here and do that, then I really hope they'll be back. But until then, I think that's what I wanted to say today. Let's don't lose. I think we have to be willing to change to bring our children back, rather than expect them to change so that we can be here with us. Okay, please join me for a prayer. Our dearest Heavenly Parent, and true parents of heaven, earth, and humankind, I'm just so glad that we can be here this morning in this holy place where we've met you so many times, where you came to embrace us, even though we don't always feel it. I'm just so grateful, Heavenly Parent, that to know that you're trying, you're reaching out to us, and we just have to break through, that we may feel your Holy Spirit come down, that we may know once again that we're loved, that we may know that this mission that we started when we were young, it's still important and it's still possible, and we will never give it up, and we will keep trying to realize the world which we've only dreamed about, a world where people live in harmony and love, help each other. We can't even imagine what such a world would be like. And yet we know the world as it is today cannot stand. So we just thank you so much for meeting us here today. We pray that we can take something from today's service with us into the coming week, that we can be strong and go out to love people as you have loved us. And we thank you so much for every blessing. And I pray this in the name of the blessed Central families. Jude. Thank you so much. All right. All right. So let's see, announcements. There's a lot going on. I think our sister Devetta will be joining us next week, is what I heard. And then on May 20th, we're going to have a prayer luncheon here, starting at 1 o'clock. Please, everyone, try to come. It's a great loss that Tim's friend, Pastor Nellie, passed this past week, because she was gonna come, and she was like kind of a central person and bring her friends, huh?
She's on the program.
Huh?
She's on the program.
What I think Alan wants to do is make a portion of this prayer luncheon like a tribute to Pastor Nellie, and so in that way, her ministers can still come, and we can celebrate her life as part of the prayer luncheon. Also, Pastor Paul Walker is coming from Charlotte, and Bishop Dudley and Minister Marion are coming. They'll have a report from Korea to share. Alan Saunders is coming, Reverend Devetta is coming, so hopefully all of you can come, and we are looking for volunteers to help organize this, and to cook, and to everything. Would you like to say something about Pastor Nellie?